when Die Hard 5 came out, and everyone kept saying it should have been more like this, or it should have been more like that, I think if it was a bit more like this show, it would have been great. Want to see why? Well, let's just cue title scene. Lagoon is a 2006 anime that revolves around the crew members of the Black Lagoon. They are, in their own words, a simple delivery company that just happens to brush up against the wrong side of the law. And to be perfectly honest, based on that description, who wouldn't want to get into this show? Now, first up, I'm going to be flat out honest. I'm not a big fan of, series that are told from the perspective of the villain. I didn't really like Code Geass. I liked Death Note, didn't love it. And that's because a lot of times I think they get very lazy and very uninteresting just because all they're just doing is making this guy seem crazy evil. But this series does things a little bit different in the sense that even though, yeah, you're following a team of not angels, but they're dealing with people way worse. And when you heard me make my Die Hard 5 analogy in the opening scene, I really meant that. I thought this show was the true heir apparent to 80s action movies. And you know what? This is one of those things where I'm happy I'm both a movie and an anime reviewer, because my critical eye could notice a lot of awesome scenes that, clearly pay homage to the age of when action was unapologetic, blood everywhere, explosions every 8 seconds, women dressed probably a bit more slutty than they should. And you know what? I loved every second of it. This show has some of the most badass action I've seen in anything animated. It was always close, it was always intense, it was over the top, and, realistically it could never happen in real life, but overall I always thought it kept a certain sense of, reality to it. Another thing it also did very well was that the only people you ever saw die were bad dudes. You see a lot of bad dudes die, but it did that very well also because you found yourself rooting for our characters. And what's great about this show is, unlike a lot of other just plain old shoot-'em-up animes, all these characters are very likable, and which is surprising when you consider who they are. But to basically sum it up simply, you've got your protagonist, a dude named Rock. He was basically an ordinary Japanese businessman. When he gets captured by our other characters, they're going to hold him as hostage, but hijinks ensue, and he winds up their newest member. And the story is told through his perspective as he basically sees the most disgusting and sickening parts of humanity, all from a very professional perspective, always sort of walking in the middle ground of it, staying a good person, brushing up against the law, as they say. And I really like the way they did this guy. At first I thought he was going to be whiny and annoying, and his character would just drag on, and they'd play the fish out of the water card. And they do that, but they don't really go into it for very long. He's not the ignorant idiot who just spends the whole first season of the 24 episodes just learning what the hell he's supposed to do. No, they establish very quickly this guy is smart, he can think on his feet, and there's a reason he's kept around. But what's good is that all the other characters are also made pretty smart too. Like, for instance, our main female character, who not only completely kills it and steals the show a lot of the time, has gotten a pretty big follow of her own, this chick named Revy. And Revy, like I said before, a lot of times, she's very explosive, very action-y. She's essentially the opposite of Rock, where Rock is a calm, friendly, nice, quiet person. Revy is all over the place, she's over the top, she's violent. The only way she knows how to solve any problem is with a gun. And you find yourself rooting for her, again, because you only ever see her doing bad things to even more bad people. And it really brings up the question, what makes someone good? What makes someone bad? Why is one person this way? Why is one person that way? And that's what I loved. It wasn't just pure violence and killing. It really had something to say about society, but it wasn't preachy about it. It knew how to combine all that with developing the characters and make them feeling real. And even our other two characters, even though they're not as important as the two I've mentioned already, were pretty good too. You've got Dutch, who's like the wiser, older, he's the leader of everything. They don't really go too much into him, but he was fun. He's kind of got almost like an older brother, younger brother relationship with Rock and Revy. I think that was done very well. You could believe how this guy can command the respect he did. Big, awesome dude. You've got Benny, who's just sort of there because there needs to be a computer guy. Yeah, he was good too. Everyone's good. This is one of the most quotable shows I've ever seen in my life. American, British, or Japanese. Every line in this felt like something you could pull to, felt like something you could reference. Most of the lines had a lot of references to other action movies and to westerns and all that stuff. But it was never overly glaring about it, because the situations these people are put in, you're thinking that too. These characters, the writers figured out a great way to have them bring out what you, the viewer, are going to be thinking. And they did things realistically. I guess if I were to nitpick that a little bit, I imagine some people might not always get the references. It might be harder to understand references to older westerns or Japanese action movies or anything like that. But if you can get even just a little bit of them, you'll understand them, because everything's presented in a very calm and logical way, and that's really what I love. That everything made sense. Everything fit together in ways that most shows would just skip out on. I could always follow every plot, because essentially the whole show was just the different adventures the Lagoon goes on, and seeing all their different missions and jobs and all the insanity and violence of it all. And we get to meet other characters too. You meet criminals. There's this amazing, she's sort of a villain, never really gets there, but is always like throughout, this person named Bella Lockie or something. Just call her Two-Face with tits. Everyone else probably should. And she's great too. She becomes this, she's a mob boss, but they work in this friendliness to her. So you kind of wonder, if you knew this person, would you get along with her? And that's how it is with everyone. It doesn't present anything in a way that's really preachy or trying to really try and cram something down your throats. It puts everything out there, and it treats the viewer with enough intelligence to figure things out for themselves. And because everything feels realistic, you're okay that maybe certain things don't climax the way that is traditional or the way you would expect them to. Things do get pretty dark, and things do become things you might not really agree with. There are moments in this show where Rock, Revy, and everyone else have to make decisions that aren't really ethically pleasing. They're decisions that you have to wonder, would you make in that circumstance, and if you had the means. And that's really what this show just does perfectly. It brought everything into it. It always begged a moral question for you to figure out for yourself, but it did not give you an answer. It didn't really try and force any ideas down your throat, and everything stayed logical and fun and action-packed. And you know what? When it comes down to it, if you can do all those things, I only got one thing to say. Oh, also the animation was done by Madhouse, and as I said with Summer Wars, Madhouse makes everything look great, so there's that awesomeness too. And I will say Black Lagoon is 10 out of 10 on the action scale. Oh yeah, I loved this show. I thought the action was exciting, I thought the characters were fun, I thought the plots were cool, I thought overall it was a lot more intelligent than one would assume. So overall, I can't really find anything that wrong with it, hence the rating. And you know what? What are the things you don't really find wrong with? In the comments section below, tell me what your favorite action movies are, either they be 80s, nowadays, action animes, whatever you want. And as always, click to like and click to subscribe, because it's shows like this that make being a reviewer totally worth it. Usually.